They're closer than you think.
I've driven more night highways than I could ever count. The work trains you to love the quiet. Mile markers ticking by, the white lines floating in and out of the beams, the cab humming like a steady heartbeat. This stretch was the kind dispatchers always say is easy. A 2-lane ribbon slashed through open desert. Nothing on either side but brush, rock, and a horizon that seems to back away when you stare at it. No towns, no stations, no porch lights, just me and the engine. An hour from my next drop. The first time I saw the SUV, it was a smudge of shape and shadow in my mirror. 2 ghostly eyes of low beams far behind me. No big deal. People tuck in behind a rig to borrow the visibility, but this one didn't behave like a normal tail. I'd roll off 5 miles per hour. It rolled off 5. I'd nudge back up. It breathed up 2. 30 minutes later, the distance between us hadn't changed. Not an inch. It was like I'd grown a second set of taillights. You start bargaining with yourself out there. Maybe they're nervous about passing at night. Maybe they're lost, using me as a guide. The logic helped. Right up until I hit a long, legal passing zone, empty in both directions, and they didn't take it. That's when something in your chest tightens. Curiosity turns into awareness. Awareness turns into a pressure you can feel in your teeth. At 2 a.m., a small rest turnout appeared. A dirt pull-off with a few faded stripes of paint and a squat metal shed that held a pair of vending machines. One bulb hung above them, the kind that can't decide if it's alive, buzzing itself awake every few seconds. I wasn't there for snacks. I just wanted to get out from under the feeling. I signaled, eased off, and rumbled up the gravel. The SUV followed, slowly, then angled into the far corner and killed its presence, sitting in the dark like it was waiting for permission to breathe. I dropped from the cab hotter than the desert air, boots hitting gravel with purpose, ready to knock on a window and ask the obvious question. Why me? I didn't make it 10 steps. The SUV coughed to life, tires spun, and it fled the lot so fast, it shredded the quiet. No hesitation, no apology, just a torn ribbon of dust left behind. By the time I reached the shoulder, its red pinpricks were already swallowed by the highway. Relief came first, anger second. Then the exhaustion hit like a brick. The vending machines were dead empty anyway, lit like a promise, stocked like a prank. I walked the rig, checked the doors, tugged the locks. Everything tight. I climbed back up, cracked the window an inch, and reclined just enough to let the body loosen, but not enough to sink into the kind of sleep you don't wake up from. Light sleepers survive this job. Heavy sleepers don't. I must have been out for 40 minutes, maybe an hour. What woke me wasn't a bang or a shout. It was a sound so small you'd never notice it in the city. Gravel, moving under weight, not much. Just a slow, deliberate crunch. Stop! Crunch! Stop! My pulse came online before my eyes did. I kept still. I didn't sit up. I slid one finger to the edge of the privacy shade and lifted it a sliver. 2 silhouettes crouched by the rear wheels of my trailer. They weren't kids playing a dare. They moved with purpose, compact, close to the metal. One had a penlight. Tiny, disciplined flashes, never sweeping, just tapping spots, communicating without a word. The other's hands worked the lower latch, feeling out how the arm was secured. I watched them map my doors like a surgeon maps an artery. In a different life, maybe you'd roll the window and ask, "Can I help you?" Out here, You treat the rig like your only house with everything you've got. I had nothing on me. No bat, no blade, nothing. What I did have was pressure, air, and a horn tuned to wake the dead. My palm hit the center of the wheel so hard it felt like I smashed bone. The air horn didn't just sound, it erupted. The cab shook. The lot shook. You could feel the blast in your ribs. The men snapped upright, stumbling backward like the ground tilted. One half fell, scrambled up, and both of them sprinted for the brush line, arms pumping, the small flashlight pinwheeling wild into the dirt. And then, headlights, low and off-axis, coming in fast from the highway. The SUV, lights still off, ghosted the entrance, swung wide as if to collect them, and then the whole constellation, car, shadows, dust, peeled back into the black as quickly and cleanly as a scene cut in a film. I waited with my breath held and my hand on the key. When the last noise settled, I made the call. Not because I thought the cavalry would be quick, but because you document nights like this. You put them in a system so if somebody else calls from this spot tomorrow, it isn't the first time. The dispatcher told me to sit tight. I watched the mirror. I watched the edge of the brush. I watched the road. Time moved like oil. 2 cruisers showed. One from the state, one local. And together, we walked the tail. Fresh pry scars marked shiny crescents into the metal, right where I'd seen the hands working the latch. The officers didn't gasp. They didn't act surprised. They just nodded like they'd met an old acquaintance and said the phrase I hate most in this line of work. Happens a lot out here. Cargo thieves, teams, one to tail, others to test the doors when you rest. An SUV to carry them in, carry them out, and make it look like the desert itself opened a mouth and swallowed them. I signed the statement. They told me to be careful on that corridor. Said some crews roam 100 miles for opportunities. I thanked them. I locked everything again, twice this time. I sat in the cab and stared at the wheel without seeing it. I used to love the desert at night. It felt honest. It felt big enough to hold whatever thoughts I spilled into it. Now, when I think of this road, I don't see stars, or the horizon, or the clean geometry of the lane lines. I see 2 shapes bent low by my doors. The soft signal of a pen light, and a car that matches your speed for 40 miles, just to learn how you breathe. When I finally rolled back onto the asphalt, the rig felt heavier than the manifest said it was. I kept the speed legal and the eyes working. Mirror to road, road to gauges, gauges to mirror, waiting for any hint of twin lights to hook in behind me again. They didn't. Maybe the horns spooked them for good. Maybe they just found someone else in the next pull-off, the next driver who trusted the quiet and closed his eyes. The fact that the officers weren't surprised is what keeps the memory sharp. You want your worst night to be an exception. You want to believe it was a one-off designed just for you. But when the people with badges shrug and say, "Yeah, that stretch is bad," something changes in how you measure silence. You stop calling it peace. You start calling it cover. I made the delivery that morning, on time. Signed papers, swapped greetings, laughed like the world hadn't put its hands on my doors a few hours before. That's part of the job, too. Pretending. You pretend for the shipper, for dispatch, for the clerk with the clipboard, and for your own hands as they climb the cab again. Every night run since, I keep the same ritual. I don't pull into dead lots unless I have to. If I do, I nose the truck so the tail faces an open angle with nowhere to hide. I listen before I look. And when I kill the engine, I sit and let the quiet tell me if it's honest quiet. or if it's the kind of quiet that's already chewing through your locks. And sometimes, when the mirror catches nothing but empty road and the sky is diamond clear, I still feel the weight of someone matching my speed, mile for mile, just outside the edge of my lights. If you ever pull off in the middle of nowhere and feel yourself watched, don't argue with the feeling. Roll on. Because the desert doesn't care who you are, but the people using its darkness do.